Already 2 people are waiting. You can skip all the unwanted questions, sir, and then take the good questions. And
No, last time also somebody started abusing, so I blocked.
yeah, you can do that, sir.
I think he was just having fun, but
Yeah, audio is coming, sir. So we are live, sir. So you can start the
okay. So
session.
which this is?
So this is the place where the students will type the questions, sir.
Hmm.
So you need to respond by looking at the camera, sir. That's it, sir. There will be a lag of 20-25 seconds depending upon the bandwidth. And
Oh, this is 25-second lag. Oh, that's
yeah,
significant.
20-25 seconds, sir. Yes, sir.
Because you have to upload and then.
Right, sir. So whenever you want to write something, just transition and then write, sir. And then come here and write, sir.
Okay.
That's it, sir. I'll be around, sir.
You can sit.
Yes, I will be here, sir. Yeah.
Are we? We can start at 6 exactly.
Yes, sir.
6.
Yes, sir. So audio is working fine. So whenever you want to, you can, sir.
Oh, I don't need the mic.
No need, sir. It's a inbuilt mic, sir.
Okay.
This camera and mic. You can skip all the unwanted questions. So because of that lag, no, sir, still.
Okay. So welcome, welcome to the live session for the MOOC course on C programming. Now there. So what I plan to do in this session is there are some questions which students have posted in response to the sheet that was circulated. Also, I'll try to answer some of the questions in the live chat, but depending on the number of questions, so whatever can be covered in 1 hour, we'll try to cover that. Okay, so hello everybody, and okay, so we can start. Before we take the questions on the live chat, I will just look through the Excel sheet. So the sheet, there was a survey where you were asked that please state your question, etc. And many people have filled that question. So I'll just go through those lists first, and then take your questions on the live chat. Okay. So the most so the most common question that people have asked is related to the exam pattern. Okay, so let me just answer about the exam pattern. We will post an old exam question paper. Okay, the exam paper will be this year will be similar. Maybe there are changes in number of questions, etc. But the pattern will be similar. Okay, so what the general pattern of the question paper will be that there will be some questions based on syntax, which you might so based on simple syntax questions in the C programming language. Then another kind of question will be that I'll give you a small piece of code and say that the input is like 111 or something like that, and then you have to say what is when you when you compile the code and run it, what will be the output. Okay, so um, the question paper is entirely objective type, so it will contain multiple choice questions and fill in the blanks. And so one part will be some syntax based questions, like for example precedence of operators. You don't have to remember much, but you will have to obviously remember the main features of the language. So then second will be that you will be given a code, you will be given the input, you have to compute the output and say what is going to be the output of the code. And the third kind of question will be that you are described a problem, you are given most of the code, and some of the lines of the program will be missing, and you will have to answer like what are the missing lines. Okay, so you will have to, so that kind of question, you will have to understand the problem, you will have to understand the way in which the program is written to solve the problem, and then complete the missing lines. Okay, so so that everybody is comfortable with the pattern of the exam, I will circulate over email or post it online some of the one of the old question papers, so that you have a rough idea of what kind of questions to expect in the exam. Of course, the exam this year will not be exactly the same, like the number of questions and which are fill in the blanks, which are MCQ and all that. So please don't say that the question paper pattern was different. So the idea is that I am posting an old question paper so that you get an idea of what kind of questions to expect. So um, does that answer the question of the people online? Okay, so I'm not seeing any response on the chat. Yeah, so um, basically the question paper will be MCQ plus fill in the blanks, some syntax based questions, some questions with code plus input. You have to compute the output, and other questions where the partial code for a problem is given and you have to complete it. Let's see. Okay. So that is roughly what is expected in the exam, and to be concrete, I will also post an old question paper. Okay, so hopefully that answers the most important question that people have. Now I'll go through the remaining questions in the Excel sheet and try to answer the most common questions, and then I'll come to the questions that people have asked in the chat. Okay. The level of the programming examination is roughly that of the assignment. It is expected to be slightly simpler than assignments because there is time limit and so on. Okay, there's one question about there are some questions about Conio.h and Turbo C. So Turbo C is not supported, and it is not meant to be used because it's a really old software that is at least 20 years old, and the C programming language compilers these days are much better. So Conio.h, for example, is just a Turbo C specific header file, and it is not part of the C programming language. So you cannot use that. But there are similar header files in the standard C. You can use that. Um, okay, so let me see what are the questions that people have in the online chat. So one question is, can you class can you clarify strings as arrays? So yeah, so the in C there is the of course character array, which is an array of characters, and strings in C are a particular kind of character arrays, which are basically character arrays terminated with the null character, basically the zero ASCII code. So strings can be seen as, so there are static strings, they can also be seen as arrays. And otherwise, normal strings in C are null terminated character arrays. That's the way to think of. Yeah, so the difference between a normal character array and a string is that a string, you can say that the end of the string is a null character. So when you write a loop to go from the beginning to the end in the string, you can check for the null character as the terminal character. Okay. Now, another question is, how do you create a dynamic array? Now, there are two ways to do it. The modern C programming specification, programming language specification, allows you to directly create a dynamic array. So, for example, if the user inputs a variable n, and then you want to allocate n characters, you can directly say that character array n, where n is the size of the array. So this is possible in the modern C language. However, in the course, we only deal with static arrays. This is because I want to emphasize on malloc and dynamic allocation. So if the version of C that you are using does not support dynamic arrays, then the way to deal with it is you declare character star C or something like that, or int star C, and then you allocate it using malloc. So malloc is covered in the lectures, and if you have clarifications, please post online. So to create dynamic arrays, there are two ways. One is you can directly declare it as int array n, where n is a variable, not a constant. And this is supported in modern C. And if you don't have the latest version of C, then you can use malloc to allocate a dynamic sized array. And that part is covered in the programming, in the videos. So another one question is like, sir, how do we develop softwares in C? So this course is not does not cover the development of large softwares in C. When you want to develop large software in C, there are many other things that are involved, like how do you split your source code in multiple files? How do you create a make file to build your output and so on? So those things are properly done in a systems programming course. And similarly, there are software engineering techniques. So it is not possible to cover all of this in one course. There's another aspect to it, which is about data structures and things like that. So all this is required when you want to develop a software, any major software. And this kind of so this kind of a course is meant only to introduce you to programming. Further, you will have to take some course on data structures and systems programming to get to a level where you can write large software in C. So the aim of this course is, if you have an algorithm, you can write a program maybe of the order of a couple of hundred of lines, and then you can compile it in a single file. So that much you can do in a single course like this, and that's the goal of the. So to develop large softwares, you have to learn more, at least data structures and some basic systems programming. So there is a question on, is there any theory? I am guessing that this question is about the exam. So there is no descriptive. So the exam is entirely objective, and objective means there will be multiple choice and fill in the blanks. And fill in the blanks questions may have code. So you may have to write single lines of code and things like that. Okay. Yeah. So people some people have asked in the Excel sheet also, why do the assignments have only code and not MCQ? My viewpoint is that the course is meant for you to learn programming, not to learn how to answer a few multiple choice questions. So it's a different thing that because of the way the grading platform has been set up, that we cannot ask programming questions in the final exam. Earlier versions of the course did have coding as the final exam. So MCQ is not the purpose of the course. It is just that the final exam platform supports multiple choice questions only. The purpose of the purpose of the programming course is to make you program, not to help you answer multiple choice questions. Okay, so there's one question about why are you not publishing test values for test other than the first test? So this is something that I did not understand was happening. It is supposed to show the values for every test other than the private test. So there are some public test cases, and then there are some private test cases. So basically, I'll look into this matter. I did not know that there was such an issue. Multiple people have asked this. So any theory or textbook that we want to refer for the exam. So the the C programming language by Kernighan and Ritchie is the standard book, but it's difficult. And I also recommend Shom series for programming in C. I don't remember the exact title of the book, but to prepare for the exam, if you want, the videos should be sufficient together with practice in doing the assignments. Yeah, so there are some comments on give some MCQ practice assignments. So I will not be able to provide MCQ practice assignments. As I said earlier, I'll give the old question papers and you can try solving the. So yeah, so I hope that will be helpful. Okay, so another question is, will there be only one exam on 29th, or will there be a non-proctored exam? We are planning a non-proctored programming exam. The dates will be specified and will be announced, but the main exam will be proctored. That is a proctored multiple choice question. Okay. So there's one question on, can you discuss argument passing in C? So the argument passing in C is something called call by value. So this is mentioned in some of the videos. So um, when a function is being called, all the arguments that the calling function has will be copied onto the called function's stack. So this is what is called call by value. So this has been clearly described in the section on functions in the lectures, and also when we discuss the swap example in the lecture videos, so you can look at that example. So there we describe with animations like how the argument passing in C works. Formally the argument passing in C is called call by value. Okay. Okay, there's some question here. What if you write printf percentage d percentage and then in printf percentage d a, where a is an int type variable? Um, I mean, you can check this out. Printf is a function; it returns a value, which is I think the number of characters it successfully printed or something like that. So you can test this out. I mean, this is no big deal. So basically, the way to understand this line is that printf percentage d a itself returns an integer value, and that integer value will be printed by the outer printf. So there is a question on, again, another person has asked about difference between call by value and call by address. There is no call by address in C. Um, you can pass pointers, but what happens there is that it's call by value using pointers. So this call by address or call by reference, it is there in other languages like C++. But so I'm not going into this because this is not pertinent, this is not relevant to C. C has call by value, but it also provides you pointers so that you can implement things that look like call by reference. So please look at the swap example in the videos. That tells you how to have an effect similar to call by address using pointers. Okay. There's a question on clarifying the string functions, but the question is not full. I mean, which string function? Um, yeah, so there are some multiple questions. So can we use string.h functions? Sure, if the assignment does not explicitly say that you cannot. So some questions that will say that you cannot use string.h functions. Otherwise, you can always use string.h functions. Okay, some people have raised a question about assignment 5, question 3. So that I think we will take a look at it. Some multiple people have raised this question. So we'll take a look at it and probably regrade it if there is an error. I mean, I'm not sure how much of regrading. So that we'll have to check with the NPTEL people. But if there is an error and regrading is possible, then maybe we'll look into it. I don't know what, I don't remember what the question is. Okay. So there's a question, is the base address of a matrix a pointer to a pointer? Not sure what the question is. So I'm guessing that it's a two-dimensional array, and yeah, okay. I think it has to be clarified a little bit more. You can use a pointer to refer to the base address of a matrix, but the base address of a two-dimensional array is has a different type. It's not the same as a pointer to a pointer. It's yeah. So one student has asked, what does EOF indicate in C? So this is, I think it's not. So EOF is represents end of file character, and EOF can be entered uh, in Linux terminal by pressing Control D. Okay, and EOF in Windows is, I think, is control Z. So you can type this, and if you have a loop checking for EOF, then if you press Control D in Linux terminal or Control Z in a Windows terminal, it should take it as end of file. So end of file indicates that you're reading a file or input or, at the terminal, and the file has come to an end, or the input in the terminal has come to an end. Okay. So some students, yeah. So some students have mentioned that they find the recursion, and in particular, one person has also said that they find pointers difficult. Um, so there's something that, yeah, one of the things that we can do, one of the things that we can do is give more examples on the recursion concept. So I'll try to see if I'll try to see that more examples of using recursion are posted in some document that I can post online. So um, yeah, so one of the reasons why recursion is difficult is because we are not used to thinking in normal problem solving, or when you want to say that here is how you solve a problem. We are not used to thinking in terms of recursion, and this is why some people find recursion difficult. Um, so one way to get used to it is to say, here is how I write a loop program, and here is for the same program I can write a recursive program. So recursion can all, so for every recursive program there's an equivalent loop program. You can write everything using for loops or while loops. So you, even without recursion, you can use it, but in most cases, again, this is just a rule of thumb. In most cases, the recursive program has fewer lines of code than the iterative lines of code. That usually is the case. So one way I can try to clarify recursion some more is I'll post more examples using recursion. So hopefully that will get you more comfortable. So, and in the document, I'll perhaps try to emphasize the concept rather than the syntax, so that you can see what is going on. So somebody has asked, can we put NPTEL certificates on our resume for campus? I am not sure. NPTEL certificates are given to you if the company recognizes it. I think so. From our side, I think there is no restriction. From the NPTEL side, you can use the certificates for whatever purpose. The companies may choose to consider it or not. And I don't think we have any official policy regarding that. I think they can use certificates in
Yes,
that.
sir, they can
Yeah,
use
they
it.
can use.
They can submit it.
So yeah, you can submit it with your resume. In fact, but it's up to the company to see whether they respect it or they consider it along with other things. So one person has asked, will we get more examples of multidimensional arrays? Um, Maybe a couple more, but uh, I will not try to emphasize multidimensional arrays a lot, because uh, when you get into arrays of dimension greater than 3, the concepts are really tricky to understand. So and then you get into not exactly programming, you get into the exact details of how C deals with multidimensional arrays, and this is not yeah, this is not an emphasis point of the course. So I'll post maybe couple more multidimensional arrays, but multidimensional arrays in C are a confusing concept, especially its relation to pointers and so on. So, and I have carefully avoided that because this is one of the things that is really complicated about C. And let's focus on the things which are simple and easy to understand so that it enables coding. Two-dimensional arrays are dealt with in C, in the C course, and a lot of scientific applications do deal with two-dimensional arrays. So yeah, so I will post maybe one or two more examples of programming using multidimensional arrays, but I'll try to keep it simple. Okay, somebody has said that how to sort out largest and lowest number from an array. Please don't post multiple times. If you post the same question multiple times, I may ignore you deliberately. Okay, so please be polite to others. So, somebody has asked how to sort out largest and smallest number from an array. Um, Okay, so to pick the largest number of an array, you go start from the initial. Write a loop where initially you say that the first element is the largest, and then you go one by one. Whenever you see a new element, you compare with the current largest. Okay, if the new element is bigger than the largest, then you say that my new largest is the last element seen. Okay, so you keep resetting whenever you see a larger number, you reset your current largest element, and then go from the first element to the last element. So you can write this hopefully using something like this. Okay, so and then if a of I is greater than largest, then largest equal to AI, and then at the end you can say return largest. So this kind of a code. Okay, so this would be a loop-based function which will return the largest element of an array. And for smallest, you can just um, reverse the inequality, and you will get the smallest element of the array. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. So suggest some small projects. Maybe I'll do it at the end of the course. There are some questions about double pointers. Okay. Let me look through the other questions first. Okay, so there's one question about how can I solve segmentation fault core dump errors. This is usually the source of such errors is usually when you're uh, crossing the array boundary. So an array has, let's say, 10 elements and you're trying to read the 11th element. So that may cause the usual segmentation fault. Another way is if your code has a lot of malloc based things. If you allocate some memory and you try to read a different memory and things like that, that's one cause of code dump. Another another way where beginning programmers have a problem is the following. So I'm sure some of you may have faced this. So suppose in your code you have int n, and then you do a scanf %d. Instead of and n, you just mention n. Okay, so scanf should take the address of n. Instead, if you use n itself as an argument, you will get core dump or a segmentation violation usually. So this is because it treats n as n is initialized usually to a garbage value, an arbitrary number, and you're trying to write some input value to that arbitrary location, and you will get a segmentation violation. So the way to do it is to do this scanf %n. So this is scanf is where a lot of starting programmers get this segmentation violation error, and at that point it may not be clear why it is a segmentation violation. But once you get acquainted with pointers, you can understand that okay, this is why it's trying to write to an arbitrary address, and this is why it's causing a segmentation fault. So how do you, once you get a segmentation fault, how do you get rid of it, or how do you track it? You have to go line by line and to see like what is the, which was the line where the segmentation fault occurred, and then try to. So there's a systematic way in which you can comment out particular lines to see if I comment out this line, does the error go away? And one by one you can debug. Okay. So so some people have asked about particular books about Yashwant Kanitkar and Balaguru Swami. Uh, I think I'm okay with Balaguru Swami. Kanitkar sometimes uses old versions of C, so I do not recommend Kanitkar without knowing which version that you're talking about. But Balaguru Swami is okay for exam preparation. Okay, so now one query is about double pointers, or I mean, double pointers is not correct. This pointer to pointer. Okay, so there is. Um, Okay, just a brief recap of what this is. So remember that let's say variables in C are stored in memory locations, right? So when you declare int I, maybe I is stored here, maybe there is a character J. So so character J is stored in another location, and character J may have some character like C, and so on. So there are many memory locations. I don't want to use this. So these are uh, variables in the um, memory, and then when you declare a pointer, what you're saying is, so these are memory locations, so they have addresses. So let's say that this is address 1000, this is at address 4000, this is address 6048, something similar. Okay, So some arbitrary locations. And what do I mean by pointers? So pointers means they are variables themselves, but the content of those variables. So if I say int star ptri, okay, so this is also a variable, but the content of the variable is the address of some other integer. Okay, so this guy's value, the content of this variable may be 1000. So figuratively we can say that the pointer is pointing to this address. Okay, but really what is happening is that it's just a variable that holds the value of another, whose value is the address of another variable. Similarly, I may have another thing called character star ptrc, uh, and this guy may say my value is 4000. So figuratively, I am an arrow pointing to location 4000. Okay, this is what a pointer is. And this so-called pointer to pointer again, is nothing very mysterious. Okay, so I'll draw it here. Okay, as the name suggests, they are variables whose location, whose value contains a location. So let's say that since this is int star ptr is itself a variable, let's say that it's at location 10,000, and let's say character ptrc is at location 10,004, something like this. Okay, so pointer to pointer, as the name suggests, I may have something like int star p. Okay, so this guy's variable, this guy's value will be some number like 10,000. Okay, so it points to a location which is in the memory. Okay, it points to a location in the memory, so that holds a variable. Now the content of that variable itself will be a pointer. So you can, so pointer to pointer, you can think of it like this: you can jump two levels. A pointer, you basically take the value and go look up that address. Okay, so you're done, one step of lookup and you're done. Pointer to pointer, you look up once, you get a variable which is whose value is itself an address, and then you look up the address, you get the thing. Okay, similarly, if you have character star star, let's say t, and this guy's value, suppose it is 10,004, what you do is you go look it up. So that variable now is like 4,000. Okay, so this value is interpreted as an address. I will go look up that address. The address 10,004 contains something which is a character star ptrc. So each value can itself be translated as an address. So you go one more level and you get the character. So if it is a pointer, you can look up the address one level. If it's a pointer to pointer, you can go two levels. You first look up one level to get the pointer, and then again look it up to get the memory location. So this is all that a pointer to pointer is. Now, mm, does that answer your question? I hope so. Okay. So one question is, how can I check if a number is even or odd without using any arithmetic operations? What do you mean by that? I mean, the usual check for a number is even or odd is by using divisibility, Another way is to okay, so you can check whether a number, suppose it is n, and if n mod 2 equal to 0, then even, this is even number. If n mod 2 is equal to or 1, this is odd number. Okay, so this is a numeric way to check it. Another way to do it is to visualize n as a binary number, which internally it is. So n, let's say n is 16. So in binary it will be 1s followed by 4 zeros, and then you can do this thing where I can take the last bit of n. So logical and yeah, I need to think about this a little bit. Um, yeah. So, okay, so this is again, you can do the same test. So this is using arithmetic operators, the modulo operator, and this is using logical operators. So you can visualize n as a binary number, and then what you're doing here is you're masking it with a particular pattern, which is 4 zeros followed by 1. So when you mask it like this, you get essentially only the last bit. So 1 0 0 0 logical and 0 0 0 1 is just 0 0 0 1. Okay, so in this case in this case the last bit is 0, so it's an even number. If you have 17, then this is 1 0 0 followed by 1 and logical. So when you do a logical AND, you will get 1 as the answer, and that number is odd. So these are two ways to check whether a number is even or odd. One uses arithmetic operators and the other uses logical operators. Okay, there's one question. Why do we need to declare the type of pointers, as we know that it holds only the integer value that is an address? This is a very, very good question, and I will not go into this. This goes into the implementation of the C object format. So the question is very valid. Every pointer contains an address. So why do we need to say int star p, character star c, and so on? Okay, one way to think about it at the level of this course is, remember that there is a size of operator. The size of operator needs to know what is the size of the data pointed to by the integer, by the address. So if it's an int star pointer, then the size of operator will return like 4 bytes. If it's a character pointer, then the size of operator will return 1 byte, and so on. So pointers are not, it's not enough to store only the address when you implement a pointer. You also need to know what is the data type, just to know that what is the size of the data being pointed to. But this is a technical matter to be dealt with at the level of the compiler. So the question is relevant, but the answer is too answer is understandable only at the level of the compiler, and at the scope of this course we don't deal with how the compiler actually works. Okay. There's another question about why do we need to typecast a void pointer. This is similar to so these are advanced questions. So the reason why you need a void pointer is occasionally you need a pointer which can hold, which can point to any data type. And then when you dereference that pointer, you need to know uh, how much data to extract. So this is a slightly advanced question. So beginners may kind of ignore this, but I've not talked about typecasting to void and so on. So beginning programmers may ignore this. So if you have void star p and p pointing to, p can point to any data type. Let's say here is somewhere in the heap I put a number 10,000. Okay, when you dereference p, I need to know. So the raw view of the heap is just as a sequence of bytes starting at a particular location. So when I want to dereference it, I need to know how much data to get from the heap. So I'll typecast it as in star, oh sorry, in star p, something like this. So this is what is whereas suppose I had decided to put some other data here. Maybe I decided to put a string hello world. Okay, okay, so this is more complicated. Dereferencing this will require more thought about how much data to read from here. So because it's a void pointer, it can point to any kind of data type. So when you want to read it back, you have to specify how much data to read it, whether you want to read 1 byte or 4 bytes or whatever. And this is the problem of typecasting void pointers. This is not at the level of this course. It's slightly advanced. Okay. How to calculate size of an operator without using size of operator? What do you mean by size of an operator? Usually, I mean size of is to use is an operator to compute the size of a data type. Okay. So yeah, the question is not clear to me. How to guess tough cases for assignment week 6 assignment 3 program? What was the program? Uh, orbit of MN. Okay. Yeah, so the algorithm is roughly that you keep track of the previously seen numbers in the orbit, and then whenever you see a new number, you see whether it is already there in the. So you keep an array of numbers that you have already seen in the orbit, and when you see a new number, you check whether it is already there in the array. If it is not there in the array, you add it. If it is already there in the array, then the orbit is over. Okay, and so the orbit is by the limitations given in the question, the orbit is at most 100 numbers. So this is not too slow to check it. There's one question about why structures are not included in our course. It is included in the course. There is towards the end, there are a few lectures on structures. So this again repeatedly the question like how to compute the size of an operator. Operator does not have a size. So some data structure has a size. Um, yeah. So Okay, so now I think most of the usual questions are over. So specific questions like why is my assignment not working and things like that, please post it on the discussion forum. Either I or the TA or some other student can help you. Um, so I have I think there are questions about assignment 4 question 3, assignment 6 question 3, and assignment 5 question 2 maybe. So maybe I'll post some more explanation as to why the solution is like that. Okay, so I'll take down these questions which people find difficult and then try to. Okay. Yeah, so assignment 5 question 3, if there is a test case issue, we'll look into it and see if there is any. Right. One person has said, while using strings, is strings.h necessary? No. You can use strings without having strings.h. Okay. Um, uh, yeah, so yeah, please don't worry about the exam model. We'll give you one of the old question papers, and the number of questions, etc., may vary from year to year, but the pattern should be similar. Um, so we'll post. Okay. Uh, so to address assignment 4 question 3, assignment 5 question 2, assignment 6 question 3, we will post. Um, Okay, in assignment 6 question 3, where will the orbit terminate for given numbers? You have to find it. I mean, it is not, there is no specific pattern. It will depend on the numbers. Okay. Yeah, thank you for noticing us, etc. You're welcome. So can you please explain the evaluation pattern of assignments? So there are some public test cases and some private test cases. Usually there are 2 public test cases and 3 or 4 private test cases. And the public test cases are given so that you can test that your code is working. But the grading will be done based on the private test cases. So this is so that you don't change the code to work only for some specific test case. Okay. Oh, okay. Somebody has said that I'm not asking for model questions. I'm asking for model exam. How exam screen will look like. This, okay, let me check with the NPTEL IIT Madras team to see if some screenshots or demo of the exam screen. Um, I don't have this at my side. Okay, so the questions will be given one by one. In one screen, you will get the statement of the question and together with it the ABCD choices and so on. But I don't have any screenshots with me. So if NPTEL IIT Madras team has these screenshots, probably I can share it. Okay, so yeah, what is a processor of exam and that question is not clear to me. Yeah, can we know more about writing to files and displaying the data in the files? Some basic things are covered in one of the last lectures using fopen, write, fread, and so on, fclose. So these functions are briefly covered in one of the last lectures. Okay, there was one question that I wanted to. Sorry, there was one question that. So one of the common complaints or not complaints. One of the common things is that please explain pointers and recursion more. I'll try to provide some more examples for recursion. For pointers, let me see if I can write some simpler codes. So these will not be videos. They will be documents or PowerPoint slides posted online. Um, the thing to notice about pointers is that it's not a difficult concept. I think there's a lot of unnecessary hype associated with people saying that pointers are difficult and so on. I never found them a difficult concept. They're just variables that whose value can is basically address of another variable. That's about it. But I'll try to give some simpler examples so that the concept of pointers is clear. Okay, so we are almost out of time. So the remaining questions, some of it please post in the forum. I or maybe TAs or some of the mentors can respond to your queries online, or maybe other students can do it. Okay, so I think okay. So I think that's it. So I'll sign out now.
We'll stop the stream, sir. Thank you, sir.